Hi, I'm Aaron Ra, award-winning advocate of science and secularism. I've served on the National Organization of American Atheists as Texas State Director and then as Regional Director, and now I serve on their Board of Directors as well as the Board of Directors for the Center for Free Thought Equality, which is a political advocacy sister organization to the American Humanist Association. The Center for Free Thought Equality is the group that established the Congressional Free Thought Caucus. I advocate skeptical atheism and secular humanist values, especially in politics. I'm an anti-theist, meaning that I consider religion to be a net negative against all human endeavors, both historically and presently. But I focus on religious extremism, meaning those groups, whether Christian or Muslim or what have you, who deny reality and reject science. As an American citizen living in Texas, I find that the biggest and most immediate threat in my area has always been Christian nationalism, which seeks to destroy every admirable value my country used to stand for. I got involved in secular activism shortly before Y2K when a group of Christian nationalists composed of a combination of Reconstructionists and Dominionists were bragging to me that how their collective congregations had voted as a bloc illegally, exactly as a coalition of statewide ministers had instructed, in order to place socially conservative judges and senators and school board members and so on at every level of state and federal government in what they call a culture war. That is still going on, and it has only regained momentum after 2016. Their goal decades ago was and still is to undermine the secular governance of our Constitution and to establish some form of Christian theocracy in its stead. Back then, I felt pretty helpless against what was later revealed to be the wedge strategy, but I knew I couldn't just sit there and let it happen. I had to do something. And it occurred to me that religious propaganda mills like Answers in Genesis, the Institute for Creation Research, the Discovery Institute, and others promoting creation science evangelism were working on a campaign of saturating the internet with deliberately deceptive distortions of science and a whitewashed Orwellian revision of history in concert with a misuse of philosophy in order to keep believers ignorant, obedient, misinformed minions. I realize that a proper education is expensive and time-consuming and requires a prior knowledge of basic concepts that most people don't know. And you'd have to know an awful lot just to recognize what lies these politically motivated religious extremists were spreading. So I set about making videos for those with little or no science background and not a lot of time to waste to give them the specifics they needed to know to keep from being misled. I specialize in improving understanding of evolution and countering the pseudoscientific claims of fundamentalist factions like young Earth creationism, flat Earth belief, geocentrism, and other forms of reality denial. I've done a few different series exposing the foundational falsehoods of creationism in a book, of course, by the same name, and also teaching evolution via the Systematic Classification of Life series, among other playlists. For the last few years, this has been my full-time job, and I find that it takes up all my time. Everything I've done since 2014 has been because of patrons and would have been impossible without them. I've often said that I used to have the same job as Mr. Incredible in a surprisingly similar looking office, denying insurance coverage to little old ladies. If I were not already atheist, that job would have convinced me that there's no such thing as a soul. In my last year at that office, policy changes made it impossible for me to do anything for my channel or make public appearances anywhere until I eventually told my boss that my job interferes with my work. Since leaving that corporate cube farm, I've been to countless conferences, conventions, rallies, and demonstrations. I've testified before state legislature and the Board of Education, and I've given lectures on many topics, not just evolution, but always countering the frauds, falsehoods, and fallacies of fundamentalism. The upshot to that is for the last decade or so, I've received at least a few emails every week from former believers thanking me for having led them out of the darkness of superstition and into the light of reason. If you got just a few of the emails that I consistently do, you'd want to keep on doing whatever you can because it is making a difference. And I find that the more that I do, the more it seems I can do. While I will continue to counter the imposition of unconstitutional religious legislation, my wife Lalandra and I intend for the future of this channel to focus more on science education. As I said, that is a full-time job. I've noticed some other channels seem to have it relatively easy with content creators finding time for movies and video games and so on. But my channel takes a lot of work. Any typical day for me is consumed by 10 to 14 hours of reading, researching, taking copious notes, and composing, followed by a few days each week of rehearsing, recording, editing, and scheduling. This, along with continuing my own education with the last couple semesters of college courses. We expect that in the last half of 2020, I will have a bachelor's degree in anthropology from Arizona State University, and my wife will have a master's degree in science writing from Johns Hopkins. Although she was already a professional public school science teacher and a curriculum specialist teaching teachers the next generation science standards. She wrote the scripts for our educational series on living science lessons, which we are reviving under the name Matter of Fact Science. That series will be based on science standards that many public school systems require, but that teachers refuse to include for religious or political reasons. We will also feature interviews with professional scientists in different fields of study which may be topically relevant at the time. I've also managed to initiate the Phylogeny Explorer project, an attempt to render the entire taxonomic tree of life as a navigable online encyclopedia of biodiversity. That project, still in development by dozens of dedicated volunteers, is projected to achieve peer-reviewed status within this year. It's been a goal of mine for a decade and has now become my proud contribution to science. I've noticed that educational science videos don't get as many views as those on much more vacuous topics, which is a sad statement of our time. That and YouTube tends to automatically demonetize anything seemingly controversial, which accounts for most of the videos that I make. And this means that Patreon could become my sole source of income. So I really do need all the help I can get. Being dependent on donations forces me to ask for money. Some other content creators promote themselves a lot more often and more efficiently than I think I do. Some people think I'm doing so many things in so many places I must be making bank, but it's a lot leaner than you think. Sure, I've got hundreds of patrons, but most of those folks cap their donations to only cover the first 1 or 2 or 3 posts this much, so that first video pays all right, but the next one not so much, as every subsequent video is worth substantially less than the one before it. So I have to make a half dozen videos every month just to squeak by. Lately they've included evolutionary science lessons, counter-apologetics for either Christianity or Islam or both, public speeches and debates and interviews promoting progressive people who not only have a plan for how to improve our situation, but who are also already actively working to make it happen. Because while anyone can complain, and everyone does, I prefer to be positive and proactive whenever possible. If you donate $1 per video, that's $6 a month. And look how hard I work for that. And look at what you collectively get out of it. Now compare that to a preacher. How much do they ask for? And for what? A wise guy once said, religion takes in billions of dollars, they pay no taxes, and they always need a little more. What do they need it for? What do they do with it? What percentage of what you've paid or that your family still pays in tithing is actually being used against your interests? If you donate to me $3 a video, that'll be $18 a month, and you'll get a preview of scheduled releases so that you can participate in the creative process, because we may take your suggested changes or corrections when necessary. We'll be doing a monthly newsletter for the Matter of Fact Science series that are available to all those who donate $5 per video, which amounts to $30 a month. $10 a video or $60 a month will get Patreon interaction on demand for Q&A. Beyond $20 a video or $120 a month, you'll get some other perks available upon request, including occasional video hangouts, again, taking in your creative input. For $100 per video or $600 a month, I could personally come to your house and do 1 day of your daily chores that you don't want to do. In exchange, I promise that I will not buy any private jets to use in trophy hunting of endangered species. Nor will I promise to magically heal anyone or exorcise any non-existent demons like those evangelicals pretend to do. I won't do any of that other horrible crap the clergy do either. But I will be, with your help, better able to take on that overwhelming enemy that is so heavily funded, but which we have actually had some success against already, and that we might still be able to beat back down before it is too late.